Broadcasting 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This is Salam Radio.
I'm just calling you Rashid.
So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Dr Shabina Asad Qayyum for Salam Radio 106.2 FM on the Body, Health and Mind show. And what a stressful day it's been for me. I can tell you, I've just come running from work. Incredibly stressful day, but a good one, because I'm going to share with you why it's a good one. And there are going to be some certain young girls who are going to be listening in on this, and they know exactly why I'm going to be shouting out their names very shortly. So I do the Body, Health and Mind show here on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. It is a delight to again be in the pleasure of your company, if you allow me to. And I've loved doing these Salam Radio shows. I've been doing them since 2015, when I was much younger. And obviously the years have gone by. And we have Asim Mahmood, our station manager, who's giggling away in the background, obviously because of my reference of how young I am, but that's okay. And we've got some very special guests in the studio who I'm going to introduce in a little while. But in the meantime, if you want to take part in this show, which is actually an incredibly important topic show, I'd like you to ring me on 01733 602 133. You can text me on 07411 191062, or you can join us in the comments on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and Twitch as well. So without further ado, before I introduce my wonderful esteemed guest, what I do want to say to you is that today and this is the shout out for the week, by the way, I've got another shout out that I'm going to be adding on, but that shout out has come on at the last minute. So I'm going to be shouting out about this little boy as well, who has no idea that I'm going to be giving this shout out, but let's take him by surprise. So I went to the Iqra Academy today and I gave a talk on a day in the life of a GP, or what do you have to do to become a doctor, and things like that. And I went into this wonderful hall full of years 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s and 11s. And these girls were so inspirational, and I'm so proud of them because they're a part of our city. They've actually won national football tournaments and matches as well. So these are young girls that actually, if I were their age, I would aspire to. And I went to give them a talk, and they were interactive, they were energetic, they had a good positive outlook on life. So I want to thank them, and I want to give them a shout out because they deserve it. And I especially want to give a shout out to, wait for it, Amna Bibi, who I said I would take her name, and Alishba, who told me that her name was Reshma Bisharat in the beginning, just a little bit of a laugh, but we realized very quickly that wasn't the right name for her, and she told me very quickly that her name was Alishba. So Alishba, if you're listening to me, that little finger that I pointed at you before I walked out, you know why, because I was going to reveal your alter ego name or your alias name. So we've done that as well. But thank you so much for having me today. It was absolutely wonderful. I enjoyed it, and I can't wait to come back. And my second shout out is for a little boy called Ali Jan. Now, he sat right in front of me. He's got this beautiful smile, mashallah, mashallah. And I'm just looking at him. I'm so happy that he's come in today, and he does boxing. He's come all the way from his boxing lesson with his daddy, who happens to be my guest. And that is where I'm going to introduce my guest. Now, my guest is Brother Raja Rashid Ilyas, who lives in Peterborough. And my goodness, what a pillar of the community this gentleman is. He actually works for Aspire, and he works in the drug and alcohol rehabilitation services. And recently we've been doing a lot of work in collaboration with the council and with Aspire as well to try and reach out to those communities. But we will talk about that. In the meantime, let me welcome him. Brother Rashid, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Dr. Shabina. Thank you so much for your wonderful and generous introduction. Thank you.
Not at all. Actually, it's not enough to give credit to you, because you have done this piece of work in such a selfless manner. You obviously enjoy what you do.
Absolutely.
Which is wonderful. I'd like to ask you a question before I go on to the main questions, and that is, what actually brought you into this line of work?
So it was a series of coincidences and very pleasant surprises. So I went into this line of work. Initially, I was a prison officer, and within the prison, I joined the recovery team, and that's a team that's dedicated to working with prisoners who are experiencing the impacts and substance misuse and perhaps suffering from substance misuse, and how you work with those clients who are in recovery. I was completely unaware that such a service existed. I had no idea that there was treatment for drug addiction. So, as part of the role that I did at the prison, we also had further training, and that training gave me more of an insight. I mean, for the first few months, it was kind of an autopilot. I had no idea about the impact that the drugs had on families and how it impacted the user. I was of the belief, as most people are, when you are naive to these things in the community or at large, that somebody who's taking drugs, it's self-inflicted. You go somewhere, you lock them up, you throw away the key, and things hopefully will get better. But this was the first time that I had experience of working with people who, it's not always self-inflicted, and you get to see the person behind the addiction, and that's what really got me interested in that field of work. And after a while, I became because within the prison, obviously, you work in the confines of of a system, and I wanted to broaden my horizons into how this sort of work is done in the community and where the continuity of care. And at the time, I came into work with an organization called Bridgegate, where one of the gentlemen by the name of Mark Summerfield, very well known within the field, he used to deliver awareness sessions, and I kind of shadowed him in the community, and I was really inspired by the impact and the difference that you could make and work closely with people. So that's what brought me into this line of work many years ago, when I was as young as you are. And
I can guarantee you that I'm older than you. You can call me Baji, actually.
I will do. Yeah, with pleasure. Thank you.
That's a really incredible story that you've shared with us, actually. And it takes few people. Often people go to work and, they think it's a 9-to-5 job. You close up, you clock in, you clock out, and you come out. But actually, and this, I think, realization comes only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah. The ability to be able to realize that, I want to be able to do something that helps or benefits, especially our community where drug addiction is seen as such a taboo, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is. And for the same reasons, when I first came across this field of work and I thought, alhamdulillah, here is an opportunity to make a difference. In the beginning, I made many mistakes. I wasn't even aware of what the impact of drugs was, coming almost from the opposite direction. And never knew the seriousness, but until you realize where we are, and obviously wanting to do something just more than a 9-5, more than just a job where every job has a purpose. But I very quickly realized that I suppose my ambitions laid with working with people, and I don't think I was made for any other role, really. So anything with where you work alongside people, with people, get a chance to, and it's working with people who are perhaps excluded from certain, I don't know whether this is the right thing to say, but from certain areas of society. And to work with them, get them back into the mainstream. And so alhamdulillah, it is a blessing, So I took it on, and I've been there since.
Alhamdulillah. Like I say, brother, I think that it's wonderful to have brothers like yourself in the community who actually stand as an example. And because I don't want Ali Jan to feel excluded, you don't have a mic, but I'm just going to ask you to nod your head. Do you feel incredibly proud of what you see in your dad? You do, don't you? That's absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that you do. And you know what? We do set ourselves as examples, not only to our own children, but obviously other children and other youngsters in the community.
Well, thank you, Shabina, and for introducing me to my son in this manner. Because let me assure you, this is the very first time that he's, I suppose, had an introduction to what I actually do. I have never shared this because well, he's old enough now and he's smiling away. But and he's put his thumbs up.
Which is pretty.
Well, I've never ever really discussed the line of work with him. That's what your dad does.
Yeah, so he's a hero of the community, and you're going to be a hero as well. Now. Yeah, okay. Definitely. You're definitely a hero of this community. When we see the amount of problems with addiction, especially within our city, and that too within the Muslim community, you feel a sense of belonging and a sense of familiarity to be able to see somebody who shares the same cultural background as you do as a patient, and that we know because we're sort of related in the same field and we work with patients. Likewise, so people from the community automatically think that, you know what, by talking to somebody who knows my cultural implications and the stigma attached, we'll just get it. And I guess that's what you've seen. Could you share a little bit with us during your time working as a prison officer, some of the effects that you've seen from an emotional perspective in people in our community who are addicted to drugs?
Yeah. So in the prison, I mean, I did most of my training at that time.
Sure.
And again, prison is, it's a confined environment and everything's within a certain parameter. And people then, at 5 o'clock when the shift finishes, they go back to their cells and it's a different world altogether. So you don't really see the impact on that person and also on their families and how and on the wider society. And that's something that I picked up when I went to do my experience outside of the prison, and that's when I really figured out what it really was. I'd be upfront and say that whilst I was at prison, I never really understood the implications because people were being treated. Yes, apart from those who were in prison because of their substance misuse. So you understood that impact, but I never really understood the impact on their families and you had families visiting the prisoners and how better they were able to communicate as opposed to when they were out in the community, because now with the medication they were looking like different people from when they come in. So that's when I really thought about the impact and what it really did. So, it's really interesting what you said, and thank you again for that introduction about working with people and coming from the same background. So that's a double-edged sword in many ways. So when you first start out, there's a huge issue of confidentiality.
Of course.
Because if the person sitting in front of you is from a same ethnic background, then there's also maybe an assumption that you are breaking confidentiality, as in we're likely to know a background, we're likely to know somebody's family, and, are we opening up to, showing perhaps weaknesses or, letting the side down or letting a community down. So that's something I had to work really hard with, but you can very easily flip that around to what you said about, cultural familiarity. And it's like saying, look, I understand. And I also understand the confidentiality. I'll own this. Sometimes I'm going to a bank and you see somebody who's sitting there and you'd be like, this person will know exactly why I've got, or in my case, why I haven't got. You know what I'm saying? So it's a bit like that, isn't it? It's giving your most secret possession to somebody else who also knows people. But, the confidentiality is a huge part of what we do, and empathy. More than anything else. And above all, I don't think there's anybody who isn't impacted by substance misuse, drugs and alcohol in one form or the other, right? You either know somebody or know somebody who knows somebody, or you have people in the family. And like I said, it's only when I got in this field that I actually learned how widespread it was. The issue of confidentiality, the issue of working with people from a similar background, but it takes a while, but you can flip it to, I understand where you're coming from, and I also understand how to work with you. Again, you must never assume that you know somebody, because some people will not like that approach.
Of course.
So, and they are equally entitled to how they wish to proceed. But just having that opportunity, and again, working with substance misuse is voluntary, right? So it's your heart's in it, you're ready for change, you're ready to commit, and then we can cross these paths, hopefully with view to moving forward and achieving success, or at least it's really about empowerment, right? It's not a question of morality, it's not a judgment call. No one's there to, or at least in my experience, tell somebody they shouldn't be doing something, as long as they understand what they're doing and how they can break away from that. So
Yes.
as long as you empower people, and that's and from my limited understanding, that is also a message of Islam. There's no compulsion in anything. Your job is to convey the message and empower people to make decisions. So that's generally what it was about.
I think that's so powerful what you've said, because what you've demonstrated is something that I often see as a holistic approach to people as individuals. It's no one size fits all methodology of treating. And having a look, if any of you are listening right now to the show, I'd really encourage you to take part in the conversation by ringing us on 01733 602133. It's a very important show. We have Raja Rashid Ilyas with us, who is somebody who works. What is your title? Tell me what your title is.
Right, so basically we're substance misuse workers, recovery workers. Now, the titles change depending on where in the country you are. In Aspire, Peterborough, people working with the substance misuse, they are known as recovery coordinators.
Okay.
And this again, that really does kind of entail the work that we do. You coordinate someone's recovery. You don't judge them. You don't take them anywhere. You simply coordinate with them.
Yes,
right?
of
You
course.
empower them. So we are called recovery coordinators. I am a team leader for the criminal justice team. So my work is slightly different from what we're talking about, but that's simply because of the area of work that I've moved into.
Yeah.
But the community work, along with very lovely people like yourselves and the other people who are on board, is really part of another project that we are trying to establish.
Yeah.
So hopefully going forward, we leave behind a pathway that people can access, going forward. So my job role or title is a team leader for the criminal justice team.
Okay.
But the actual work that we do, or the work that we are talking about here, is recovery coordination, case management. I suppose typically known as recovery workers or key workers, or it falls within that area. But we're basically working with people to empower them
Of course, yeah.
to make decisions. So, what's in a name? It's,
Definitely. Well, it is. I think it's very influential in terms of what your role is, because you have so many facets to the role as well.
Alhamdulillah, indeed. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. And just obviously going back, if you're listening to this is Dr Shabina Asad Qayyum on the Body Health and Mind Show for Salam Radio. Very special show where we have Brother Raja Rashid Ilyas.
Rashid is fine, Shabina. It's...
you know what? I can't take your name away from the title of Raja. It makes me feel special that I've got somebody who does such an important job. So he has to have an equally important name. Raja, what's your first name again? Raja Ali Jan. So
Raja
that's what
Ali
we need
Jan
to...
Rashid.
Raja Ali Jan Rashid. So we've got two Rajas here with us sitting here. And if for those of you that don't understand the Urdu language, Raja basically means like prince or king in a way. So we have very important esteemed guests with us, but they do an important job. It's not just with that title. But I'd like you all to communicate and start commenting on the sort of the video that you're seeing of the live stream, because it's such an important topic. And every one of you, and I've had an awful lot of people who've reached out to me to ask about help with somebody that they know who has an addiction. What should we do? And this is part of that show. We need to reach out to our community to make you aware of what is available. But part of it is engagement. We will be talking about that. So we've got one comment from Sister Suleika Balde Mbalo. Salam, Sister Shabina Asad Qayyum. Happy to see you here again, mashallah. It's wonderful to have you here as well, Sister. Absolutely wonderful. And I'm going to go through some questions that we've accumulated beforehand, and also what some listeners would have sent. So tell us a little bit about Aspire. Obviously, what are the services that are offered by Aspire, and what are your opening times?
Okay, so I'll give you a general overview, and please ask me a question if you want something a bit more specific.
Sure.
Because having worked in the field, I will rabble on for days, and you may not get what the
That's all right.
the information that we actually require. So, Aspire, the national organization is called CGL.
Okay.
Previously, it was called CRI, which was a Crime Reduction Initiative. So we moved away from that because it had connotations of criminal behavior, and it kind of it was almost a barrier for the wider people to join. So we changed very nicely to change, grow, and live. And that's basically what this is about, right? So you change your behavior if you wish, you grow and you move on, and you grow into a new role, a new person. So basically, it's your, you transform from a life of addiction or a life of dependency to a life of recovery. That's basically the idea behind it. So change, grow, and live. The Aspire is also an acronym, and it's long, and I'm not going to go into it now, but it was actually started off by who is now our service manager, a very lovely lady by the name of Claire Thatcher. I don't know if you met. And Aspire is for Peterborough. So CGL is a nationwide organization, and they have different local names. For example, there's Substance of Solutions, and there's Resolutions, and all sorts. And in Peterborough, we are called Aspire. So it's a drug and alcohol treatment agency. So we are here to treat and work with anyone who is experiencing, suffering from, or has had any issues related to substance misuse, drugs and alcohol, and that includes a wide range. You're talking about addiction to prescribed medication, addiction to maybe, you could even come in for coffee addiction, right? Because it's whatever the addiction is, just the behavior rather and how it impacts the person rather than the actual substance, right? So this isn't about the substance, it's about the behavior and what it means to that person. If you are fine with a behavior, then you can come and see us when you're ready.
Wow.
If not, you can, it's not about what it is you're using, but it's what the behavior is causing you and how it impacts you. So as a drug and treatment provider, alcohol treatment provider, so we would work with any substance. So, the main substances that people are generally aware of are opiates. So, for example, heroin, a very terrible substance that's very well known around the world, to non-opiate substances, so things like crack cocaine, cocaine, cannabis, and drugs fall into so many different categories. We can go on all day, but there's hallucinogenics, and there's uppers and downers and depressants, and how they impact the person. Alcohol, obviously, is a huge service. Now, previously, there were two different services. We had a drug service and a different alcohol service, but they have now combined, and we are now a drug and alcohol service. And your question was what kind of work we do?
So what are your opening times?
Okay, so our opening times for the office are 9 o'clock or 9:30, because we have a morning meeting, 9 till 9:30, after 9:30 until 5 o'clock. On Thursday, it's 9:30 till 7:30. But we have an out-of-hours phone, so we are available 24 hours. So if anybody wants to ring up for information, advice, or generally to ask about, how they can refer themselves to the service, you can ring 24 hours.
That's wonderful.
And that's come from, a place of, so clients, people who work and they come home in the evening and they want to chat with someone, well, they can just ring that number.
That's wonderful.
And then there'll be somebody at the end of the phone, and that person can give them help, advice, information, and hopefully the following day. And it's also about, you see, when people want to make a change, you have to get the thought as soon as it appears. You have to act on it. So there'll be so many people thinking about engaging, but, okay, I'll do it in the morning, and then it never happens. So, well, you can pick up the phone and ask, and so the seed is, what's the word, sown, is that what they say?
Yeah.
So, it's the thought is there, and then they can act on it. So, and this is over the weekends as well, and Christmas Day is that we're not off. Our phone is up and running, and it's available for people to ring at any time.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. Thank you.
So whilst we've got 1.5 minutes left to the break, I guess The simple question is that you're accessible, you ring the number, you are available. How can people access your service? Do they have to Google you, or do they don't have to go necessarily through a referral of a GP? A GP can make you aware, but they don't necessarily have to.
That is correct, yeah. So there's the first and foremost is a self-referral. So you can walk in, speak to the receptionist, and they will bring somebody down who will have a chat with you. If you're able to see them there and then, they will make arrangements. If not, then we will arrange a convenient appointment time for you to be seen. And obviously, we have a late evening as well, so people who work can attend during the evening. We also do phone assessments where necessary. So we will look to accommodate people where we can. In that sense, yeah. So you can. That's the I suppose the most common ways people to walk in. Then you have your GP referrals, you have social services referrals. We obviously get referrals from yourselves. Anybody and everybody can make a referral. You know, professionals, your health workers, you know, your gym instructor. You know, if you give him consent, anyone can make a referral. And as long as we have consent, we will call you and we will, you know, discuss the issue and bring you in for an assessment and to discuss where the treatment needs are and how we can move forward.
Wonderful. Perfect timing. We've got 5 seconds to the break. Join us back with this very important show with Brother Rashid Ilyas and myself on Salam Radio.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Asia Restaurant gives you the unique fusion of flavours from Turkey, Iraq, Syria and Iran. Our shish kebabs are grilled on a charcoal barbecue for that authentic taste. Lamb shanks, fresh shawarma, chili kebab, lamb shish, grilled chicken, freshly made baklava and so much more. Eat in or order through Peterborough Eats or Peterborough Grab. Asia Restaurant, 5 Fitzwilliam Street, Peterborough, PE1 2RU. Call us on 01733 562 530. Great prices, great quality. Why not come and find out for yourself? Asia Restaurant, the true taste of the Middle East.
महनूर मजीद हूँ और कोट मेरा एक खूबसूरत आशियाना है जहाँ मेरे जैसे हजारों यतीम और बेसहारा बच्चों की कफालत बेहतरीन अंदाज में की जा रही है। आएं हमारे सरों पर दस्ते शफकत रखें और इस माह रमज़ान अपने सदक़ात, खैरात और एहतियात से हमारी कफालत में अपना हिस्सा डालें। अल्लाह पाक आपका दिया हुआ माल अपनी बारगाह में कबूल फरमाए। आमीन।
Court UK office
0300 123 774 court.org.uk.
At Cake Inn, all our cakes and slices are freshly baked for that delicious taste. At Cake Inn, we bake 100% vegetarian and halal eggless fresh cream cakes. Delicious flavoured cakes for birthdays and weddings, ceremonies and all other occasions, with free customised messages, even balloons and candles too. Order for delivery or collection from Cake Inn, 489 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PE, and your cake could be ready within 2 hours. Find out more and order online at cakein.co.uk or call 01733 496 584.
Peterborough. Who said good quality fried and grilled chicken has to be expensive? At Sam's, we take pride in every piece of chicken that leaves our kitchen. Just one bite of our chicken or burgers is all it takes to realise we are the best. Visit us at our brand new place at 333 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PF. Or order a delivery through Just Eat, Uber or Deliveroo. Sam's, the home of great tasting chicken for over 30 years.
हाँ जी जनाब, आज तुसने किया 12 बजे वे
जरा फैमिली की बाहर खड़ना चाहना या खिलाने पिलाने से सोचना कुथे जाओ
इस च परेशानी वाली कड़ी गल है। इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट पर जाओ, उते फ्री पार्क करो। उन्होंने मजेदार ते स्वादले पाकिस्तानी, इंडियन, चाइनीज ते इटालियन आय 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 खाने ना ते जोड़ी कोई नहीं, नाले सस्ते ते स्वादले।
ए थे रक्स, इसका मतलब है बटवा भी नहीं होला होनेगा। इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट, वैरायटी ऑफ डिलीशियस डिशेस के अलावा जेलाटो आइसक्रीम एंड वॉफल्स भी करते हैं। वीकेंड्स पर अपना टेबल बुक करवाइए और वीकडेज तशरीफ ले आइए। ओपनिंग आवर्स शाम 5 बजे से रात 10:30 बजे तक। इब्राहिमी रेस्टोरेंट 63 Sycamore Avenue, Peterborough, PE1 4JP। टेलीफोन 01733 313131।
In the heart of Cambridgeshire, this is Salam Radio.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It's wonderful. We've had such a wonderful conversation during the break. So I've been talking to, you know what? I'm looking at your face and all I can see is Jan. If I forget your first name all the time, that's so bad, isn't it? What is it? Jan. Eh? Ali Jan. So I've got little Ali Jan in front of me and we're talking about how, what we call dads. So he calls his dad Baba, don't you? There you go. I got it right.
There you go.
There you go. So he's called Baba. So he's here with his Babaji, looking at all the wonderful work that he's doing. And he's just come from this boxing class. And he's come to Salam Radio. And he's such a good boy, it's unbelievable. So listeners, with all young boys who are 10 years older and in year 6, take note. Yeah, and he's nodding away, which is wonderful. Well, Brother Rashid, thank you so much that you've come and taken your time here today. You've given us a lot of insight as to, you know, what the service is about in Aspire. I'd like to ask you, you know, we have people in our community who reach out all the time who have problems with addiction. I found it incredibly, actually, it was wonderful that you say that people can come to you even if they've got an addiction to coffee. And we have quite a few varied addictions. We have children who are addicted to social media as well, aren't we? But we will talk about that. Talking about our own community in terms of the Muslim community and some of the problems that we're seeing here in Peterborough, what challenges do you feel we face with reference to the Muslim community in Peterborough when it comes to problems surrounding addiction?
Okay, so I suppose that the biggest problem is the subject, which is quite taboo still in our community. And you know, because of the amount of exposure that we've had to treatment, etc. So rightly so, because not enough work has been done for this to change for many, many years. So people still see addiction, excuse me, as a weakness, also self-inflicted, which, you know, the assumption that we don't deserve any sympathy because you do this to yourself. And they are not willing to engage. Certainly not with the Drug and Alcohol Agency, because I don't know whether they think that. Well, I suppose it's just that barrier, which is really because they're unaware of the service and what it provides. It's no different to going to a GP surgery.
Yeah.
Right? But obviously, drugs and alcohol, we have connotations of I suppose, negative thought processes that are associated with drugs and alcohol within the community. So the biggest issue is getting people to self-refer or engage.
Yeah.
Once we get past that and people can see the pathways, they're generally really happy to engage, and they actually do very well because they have a very good levels of motivation. But the initial stages of engagement, and we do still struggle. Now, obviously, having been in this field for a long time, and I liaise a lot with people in bigger cities, because their numbers are so high, and the issue can no longer be contained, and it's almost spilling out. So they have warmed up to the idea and accepted the idea of treatment. So we have, we even have services that have offsprings, if I can call it that, or, you know, side mini services that are dedicated to dealing with people from ethnic minorities.
Okay.
And I'm aware that, like for example, in Birmingham, there's something called the Muslim Recovery Network, which is part of CGL. Now, what they do is they follow a very, you have Christian-based recovery services. So they take the Islamic point of view and they learn a lot from Sunnah and Hadith. And this, I'll just make another point. This is not new.
Yeah.
And it's not just this society, or it's not just people who live in Western countries who have these issues. Addiction is been there from day one.
Yes.
And as you're aware, and I don't want to get into any contentious issues, but at the beginning of even when Islam was was being introduced, as it were, alcohol was used on a very large scale, and it was the addiction, and the dependency, which was the reason that there were further revelations asking for it to be cut down and then to be banned. Just while I've said that, just to make that assumption, I mean, that is something to learn from. So they did not just ban alcohol all of a sudden. There's a reason why it was done over a period of time, so that people with addiction would have the opportunity to address the addiction.
Yeah.
So treatment comes before.
Yes.
I know it's prevention before cure, but once you're there, then it's no longer a addiction, as it were. It's dependency.
Of
right?
course.
So you need to treat that dependency. And hopefully things like that will change perceptions of how we should move forward and I suppose embrace change in this manner. But the issues are there with engagement. We've had several. We tried to hold seminars and meetings and they're not been very well attended.
Yeah.
And it's because people either don't want to come and partake, or they think that by partaking they're almost admitting that there's an issue.
Yeah,
right?
or they're exposed.
Or they're exposed, or they're perhaps they're admitting to to being in addiction. So they haven't gone extremely well. However, compared to where we were, for example, 6-7 years ago, the attitudes have changed. And as you know, we now work closely with the mosques.
Yes.
And we've had a really good turnout. And we have a young people service in Aspire, so we work with people who are under 16 and under 10, and then age-appropriate content is delivered. And the uptake has been brilliant, and the response from the mosques has been amazing, and we're very, very encouraged from that point of view. In terms of, we also had other partner agencies like Gladka. We work very closely with Gladka, and they've been amazing.
Yeah.
We've attended their coffee mornings with myself and Mark, and we've held talks, and it's been very well received. And people, and from the questions that people have asked, it's very obvious that they are aware of the issues. We're now at a stage where we need to admit and move forward. So hopefully, what we're trying to do now, I mean, we're also, while on the subject, we're in the process of looking at recruiting somebody in the future to work specifically with the Asian community, to work with the ladies who, I suppose, a mother is the first point of call for a lot of children, and hopefully we can access those areas and have a presence where the ladies are. It'll empower them, and also will take away I suppose the idea that you have to go and talk to somebody else and then go to a community leader before you can approach a service, which is traditionally what's been happening. Now that is actually a huge barrier, because imagine having an addiction or having an issue, and then you have to go through 3 people before you finally get to where you need to be. So hopefully, we'll remove all those. But at the minute, we are facing those issues. And there is a reluctance. And with awareness, I'm sure that will change. Now we do a lot of work with schools, etc. And I was really encouraged. It hasn't been as many as I would have thought. But even then, I've been approached. I've had people send me messages. I've had people ring and ask, and then refer people. And we have had some very good successes.
Wonderful.
With people, and I often use this example. I'll do it now while we, because we had a gentleman once. He was referred to us after we'd done a talk somewhere, and someone just rang in. And this gentleman, the time that he'd been here, he had an addiction to alcohol, but he did not get to, he wasn't even aware that there was treatment available. And, you know, long story short, we got him into treatment. He attended some sessions, and he went after, he was suitable for rehab, and he went into rehab, and he came out. And about, must have been a good few months later, and he spoke no English at all.
Wow.
And we worked with him all the way through, and in the rehab we had interpreters, and they were provided by the rehab that they went to. And he did really well, and he came, and he one day he walked in and he wanted to thank the service.
Wow.
And it changed so much that people, we didn't recognize him, he was the same guy.
Wow.
His level of confidence, he was doing so well, and you know, and it was a great story. And he then, a few more people then came in who this, you know, very lovely gentleman had introduced to the service. So we are getting there.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's through, I mean, visible recovery is perhaps the most powerful thing.
Yes.
You know, so we need a bit more of that from the community, people who have done well, to then invest that time.
Yeah.
And you know, and show that it can be done and move on. And I think we need to embrace that.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
you know, the issues just around engagement and people embracing, you know, the treatment pathways,
yeah.
which we are getting there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit slow, but we will keep
get there.
hammering away. Yeah.
Bless you. You know, you've given so much information about it. In fact, I'd be really pleased to announce some comments here. So we've got Dr. Azhar Chaudhry, who you know,
Yes,
who has said,
fantastic.
mashallah, very informative. Thank you, Dr. Azhar, because you're somebody who's very much a part of this team. And we also have Councillor Amjad Iqbal, mashallah, very informative and beneficial. And you know, that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning in, because it is people like yourself who are key communicators within the Muslim Asian community who actually take an interest in this work, can spread it around and remove the stigma that's associated with it. You have given, I could just sit back and fold my arms and let you talk away for this, because I think that the information that you have given is so key. It is very positive, and a message to other listeners as well that engagement is improving, that uptake will improve on the basis of the fact that we have people that are listening to it, and that removes the other taboo issues around this as well. So we're already making change.
We are, and I just have to say, people like yourselves, Dr. Shabina and Amjad and Dr. Azhar Chaudhry, Amjad Iqbal, I mean, you know, they're pillars of our community, and for them to embrace this, you know, it really gives it the boost that we require, because, you know, this is the thing, if you're not gonna we'll find ways of engaging, right?
Yes.
So if you have to go through GPs, and if we have to go through counselors and you know, people that the community does take seriously, that's what we will do.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are getting that. It's a great help, and it really makes me proud, you know, when these people turn up and they encourage you and are happy for people to refer. And you know, and that is how we will move forward.
We will move forward.
We will get there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure we will.
And that's obviously around. And you know what? On that note, Ali Jan, I want you to come here and give me 2 high fives on that, because that's how we work together in the community. Thank you very much.
You're boxing one too.
But what is it
No.
nowadays? What is the in-trend? No, don't box me, like, seriously. But what is the in-trend thing nowadays? Do you do that? Is that the sort of is that what you do? Like the spud, is it? Or is it the handshake, the spud? No, come here, let's do that. That's what you do. It's not this anymore, is it? No, that's old, yeah?
What do you call a spud?
Yeah, you call it a spud. So that means that we are achieving something. So thank you very much for those wonderful, and we've got another comment from Lee Taylor. What a great show this evening, as always. So you are making change. You are that facilitator, that you are spreading this message around, Brother Rashid. And, you know, I can't tell you how grateful I am. And that's why we use these platforms, because Salam Radio is not only an information source, but it also is to make people aware of the services. And we have, as I know, I've communicated with you in the past about people that have wanted to access the services. And this is where I think that your input is key, because often when I speak to people in the community, there are certain, another taboo issue is that your information on this topic is incredibly important. It gives insight, it gives information as to how the process it takes place. often when people are subjected to addiction, especially within the Asian community, parents, family members become so desperate for a change to happen that often is the expectation that they will see results very quickly. And the key is engagement, to trust in the process, to become empowered, but also know that things aren't going to change overnight, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something, that we really need to be aware of. Because once people are engaging and they come into service, sometimes it's what we call unrealistic expectations from the service or what they think they will achieve. Now, if it's taken so long for an addiction, for them to become dependent, the recovery work will also take perhaps not as long, but it will take time, because there's certain. It's a cycle of change, right? And we're all aware of the change process that we go through. So when you first start to address the issue, the first changes that person feels are within themselves. Okay, they will not always be pleasant changes. They're not necessarily, because one of the things that drugs and alcohol does very well, that it masks a lot of the underlying issues. May they be physical trauma, pain, other physical health issues, but a lot of the times it's the mental health issues. Right?
Yeah.
So once we start to take away the drugs and alcohol, and those feelings start to come to the surface, a lot of times people associate that with the treatment not going well, right? Because what treatment does to you is it's no one that anybody else does. You very quiet. You have the medication that may replace an addiction, or I can't think of the word right now. But if you have, if you're addicted to opioids, then there's the substitute medication that's given. But all that will really do is stop making you from feeling ill.
Yeah.
What it doesn't do is take away, the journey that it took you to get there, why and how you got there in the first place. And when a lot of these things start coming to the surface, they would be difficult to deal with. And this is why then you have the added services. You have a recovery worker, you have a coordinator, you have, and sometimes we have counsellors that we can refer you to. And this is where GPs need to get engaged again.
Yes.
Because sometimes when that happens and these things come to the surface, it causes the client, or it can cause the client to relapse.
Yeah.
You'd rather be in a state where you don't have to face these things. And sometimes, it brings out a lot more than what you would think, because people have tremendous amount of trauma and history and issues around why they got there, and personality disorders, and particularly the mental health aspect, because people who are dual diagnosis, for example, who have both mental health and drugs and alcohol, a lot of the times you don't know what came first. Okay, so sometimes the mental health is masked by the drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And as you start to work on that, the mental health comes to the surface, and then they're feeling unwell, and vice versa, right? So it works both ways. So the journey is not necessarily a pleasant journey.
Yeah.
But it will be at the end. And sometimes the expectation that you'll walk into a service and maybe somebody will give you a magic pill, or sometimes one of the reactions we get, especially from people who have been referred previously, and the comment I get is, well, they just talk to you.
Yeah.
The issue is when you're taking for any non-opiate based medication, or if you have a dependency on a drug, like for example cannabis or cocaine, for which there isn't a substitute medication, because it's a very psychological addiction.
Yes, it is.
So the first thing you do is you learn what it is. Then you learn what it's doing to you, which will be very different from the person next to you, because it has a very different effect on you, depending on who you are, the type of personality you are, and what you were and how you were before you started taking the drugs. Because often it goes back to, well, the reason why you first started taking the drugs, it was either to fill some kind of a vacuum, or it was something that you needed, and now all of a sudden that's being taken away, so it brings to the surface things like that. And people often walk away. But it's a journey, there's steps, and it's kind of self-discovery. And we run something called the Foundations of Recovery, and it has 3 sets of, it's a course consisting of three different levels. So you come in at the change stage, and that's where you start to change your behavior. It's the foundations of change. So really all you're looking at doing is, why do you want to change? Do a cost-benefit analysis of where you are and whether it's something that's for you. If not, we're quite happy for you to stop at that stage. But then you start looking at making the changes. Once you've done that, and if you progress through this and you're happy, then you move on to growth. So you start to grow on the changes that you've made. And then the last one, which is Foundations of Life. So you made the changes, you've grown, and now you move on to away from drug services and, all the what we refer to as recovery capital. So you utilize the facilities within the communities to move away from, and now you're in charge of your own recovery.
Yeah.
And you move on. And we do have, we still carry on. There is contact, and there are recovery champions who will still keep in touch with you.
Yeah.
So, that in essence is what a journey is change, and then you grow, change, grow, live, CGL,
yes,
right?
See,
so it basically follows that through, and until and unless you get to that stage, you may not always see. Now, there are some people who come in, and they actually get all that from the word go, because they pick it up really quickly, and off they go, and they're doing really well. Some people have to go through the course. Some people do it several times.
Right.
So,
which shows that they actually want to get better. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you've, to be honest, I'm just putting the questions to the side because you're answering the questions that I had. But one of the things, and I'm going to read some notes out over here because there are some wonderful questions. I'll actually read the comments out and then I'm going to ask you this question. It's a scenario.
Okay.
So we've got Brother Naveed Khan. Welcome, Brother Naveed Khan. I really am a fan of your whole hijama thing because I think that holistic therapy is very important as well. And
Absolutely.
I need to get you on a show. So addiction masks underlying trauma. Very insightful. Thank you for this. So thank you very much for that because you highlighted that. And then we have Snow, who does a show here on Monday in Lithuanian. Brilliant show. Such an important topic. Thank you. So very, very important. Now, have you ever come across the scenario where, because we are emphasizing on the Asian community, have you come across a scenario where you have people that come in, and I know that our younger generation who are embroiled in addiction don't have the sort of depth of understanding often than not to, indulge in long-term engagement? Do you ever have anyone that says, no, man, I just want you to give me something to rid me of my addiction. I just can't be doing all of this and coming back all the time. I got stuff going on, man. Do you get that, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this isn't something that's specific to the Asian or exclusive to the Asian community. This is on the whole.
Sure.
I think someone coming into treatment, I think this is part of that expectation.
Yeah.
Is to come in, see somebody, and within a click of a finger, it's done. So when they come in, and this is what I was kind of hinting at before, so they engage for a bit and they think there's no changes being made because they think that somebody else is going to make those changes for them. That unfortunately that is not how it works. You have to put a lot of work in. You have to put commitment in. You have to do the other the psychosocial interventions, and you have to address the other issues. And at the same time, you have to, as soon as you start to address the substance issues, and you start to take that away from you, even at stages, you need to fill those gaps with something else, right? If you leave that empty, then all you're really doing, and obviously you being a doctor will understand this more than anybody else, is that it's all the chemicals and the neurons in your brain, and there's a void there, and it's very difficult for them to leave that empty, and obviously there's what people look for is instant gratification. We all do, right?
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning, you're not feeling well, and you hit the coffee, or people who smoke very quickly light a cigarette. But for those of us who are further down the line, they will resort to what they know best. So a first hint of, I'm not going to use the word trouble, but first hint of challenge, and sometimes people give up, well, this isn't working for me, I'm not getting anything out of this, you're just talking to me. you know.
Yeah.
But without that talking, they wouldn't understand the next bit. So, you know,
Those conversations are key, aren't they?
yeah. It's just this quote comes to my mind that somebody actually mentioned to me this morning. You know, it's a quote from Rumi, where he says, you know, Rumi, the renowned scholar, and he said, why just this? And Rumi says, because this leads to that.
Wow. But it is very deep.
Yeah, it's very
and
deep,
reflective.
Yeah.
If you listen to it.
Yeah, you have to start from somewhere to get to the next step, right? You have to prepare. You have to make the groundwork.
Yes.
Just as just as how far we got from, you know, how you start whatever drug or addiction you have, you start from a place recreationally to using it as, you know, as a dependent or have a dependency on it. That's a journey. It took a long time, so you have to almost unravel all this and then start going backwards.
Yeah.
So we get those issues, and like I said, this is not exclusive or specific to the Asian community. This is generally what people expect.
Yeah. Well, I am so grateful you've come on this show, because there was so much for us to talk about, but we are going to continue this. Now, I just wanted to let our listeners know that Brother Rashid and ourselves, along with Dr. Asad Chaudhry, we have been engaging in sort of how to increase the uptake in the Asian community. You've explained that so well. Giving and delivering the show has been a key part of that. But the next show we're hopefully going to get a guest on from Aspire as well, who works with the younger community in terms of addiction. Brother Rashid, thank you so much. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. And Ali Jan, I've remembered, give another high five. And a spud. There you go. Do you think that was a successful show? But we need to talk about it. So the message is, my listeners, continue having those conversations. If you identify somebody that you know, send them to the Aspire team. I will be back the week after next with another show on it. In the meantime,